I actively try to discourage unhealthy parasocial relationships in my community because I think they're bad for me and bad for you and bad for everybody. However, parasocial, there are ways to be parasocial that are normal and actually can be helpful and beneficial to your mental. Hello, YouTube. Come join us on Twitch if you ever have time at twitch.tv/hex_juice. VTubing tends to be overly parasocial in a way that is not helpful or healthy for the people involved. And so I am interested in that, on the perspective on that. Let's get into it. I'm going to stop yapping. Subscribe.
So I've done a video now about VTuber terminology, and I've done a couple of videos about things that included information about idol culture or that talked about how you're not really VTubers' friends or stuff like that.
True.
But there's been a couple of divided comments talking about how parasocialism is bad or parasocialism is good, or how they like idol culture and they don't want to get rid of it, or how idol culture is the devil or stuff like that. And I think there's been a little bit of a misunderstanding on my take on it. So I wanted to try and take some time to try to explain to you guys what parasocialism means in VTubing and why it's not actually a bad thing.
I'm going to tell you my opinion on what parasocial, the word parasocial means. I have a video up on my channel about this. It's pretty old though, so it might be kind of crap, but I do have a video on it already. Parasocial is inherently a neutral term. It is simply ultimately just describing the relationship between the content creator, celebrity, whatever, and the viewer. Every single person in here, you have a parasocial relationship with me because I don't personally know you, just as you don't personally know me. But it describes a power imbalance where y'all know me and have more access to me than I can possibly know about all of you. So it's like, it's a neutral thing, and it can actually be really good for people if it, you know, it can provide comfort and familiarity with somebody without having all of this like emotional intimacy. It's an entertainment thing, and it's enjoyable and it's fun without needing like all of the messiness of like closeness. And so people use parasocial in a negative light because usually you're only going to talk about a parasocial relationship when it's gone wrong. It's important to understand that the reality is that parasocial is inherently neutral unless you're using it in the wrong way or you don't understand where the boundaries are. And that's on the case of the viewer and also of the creator. Both can break boundaries that are inappropriate and can create a toxic level of parasocial relationship.
A bit of a disclaimer for you guys. I do think that it's not a good thing if you don't separate it from reality. If you think of parasocialism and you think like this is legitimately my friend and stuff like that, that's not actually what I'm talking about in this video. That's actually what I was talking about in my last video about friendships. I think that if you are at a point where you think that you legitimately are friends with someone, you probably need a reality check and you probably need to look at that video because I think it'll help you out. But that's not what I'm talking about in this one. In this one, I'm talking about healthy fantasy. So I know there's been a lot of...
It doesn't even have to be like, I'm going to let her talk because I think that if this is coming from a VTuber's perspective, it's going to be a little bit different. I am a VTuber, technically speaking. I got the avatar. However, I don't operate in the way that VTubers tend to do so. So I'm going to let her talk on VTubing because honestly, I don't do that and I never fully have.
A discussion about parasocialism in the recent years, especially on YouTube and stuff like that. But let me just read out the dictionary definition of parasocial for you to start us off. Parasocial is involving or relating to a connection between a person and someone they do not know personally. For example, a famous person or a character in a book. I'm assuming that a lot of my audience doesn't tend to watch a lot of face cam streamers or a lot of face cam content creators. So
I'm assuming that my audience does. I'm assuming that there's actually a shocking percentage of my audience that specifically doesn't watch a lot of VTubers, or that I was one of their first VTubers ever. Is very different from a typical VTuber audience. A lot of you might know about VTubers, but don't specifically watch that many of them. And I've always ended up kind of with this audience of people that don't even know anything about VTubing at all, which has always been really weird because I've always been a VTuber. It's weird. Even when I was really small, I always ended up with motherfuckers who like never really knew anything or watched like almost any VTubers.
So I would like to point you guys towards a video that was made by Carolyn Easom recently. It was only 3 weeks ago, talking about parasocial relationships. And I think that her video is kind of what I'm going to be getting at today too.
Okay.
But in VTuber context, it's a little bit different than in a normal content creator context with parasocialism. Before I get into the VTuber context of things, let me just restate one of the points in her video first. I don't think that parasocialism is actually that bad. I think that it's actually kind of a good thing, and I think that a lot of humans in general are parasocial. It's not even necessarily towards content creators only. There's things like being parasocial towards a sports influencer, or not influencer, but I don't really know what to call them.
Even a sports team, anime characters, not even like VTubers, characters, celebrities. The way that those interactions work are different based on what kind of influencer you are. Yes, everybody's parasocial about something to a certain extent. 100%. 100%. I think this is true.
I'm not a sports ball fan. Or to a pop star, or to an author. Maybe you connect really well with a book that an author wrote, and you feel like that message really applies to your normal life, and you feel kind of a connection to the author in that way. Parasocialism is rampant in our society in a good way. It's not like a bad thing. It's okay to connect with people. It's okay.
It is not inherently a bad thing. And I'm not disagreeing with her. I think that there is nuance that is important to the statement. It is, in my opinion, to my definition and the general definition, inherently neutral. And parasocial relationships can be very nice and pleasant and good for you, and actually good for your mental health. They can also be extremely destructive.
Okay to feel some sort of connection to people who you don't know, because in the end, all of us are human beings that are searching for some sort of connection and searching for understanding in the world. If we can find that through a creator, through an actor, through some sort of person that is doing something that we enjoy, then that's okay. But I feel like in a VTuber context, it actually goes a little bit further than that. These aren't just people that you are connecting with because of their hobbies and stuff like that. These are people that are actually actively selling you a fantasy in some cases. Sometimes they are actually acting like they are your girlfriend. Sometimes they are actually acting like they are your best friend, and every day that they see you is like the highlight of their day, you know? These VTubers are playing up a fantasy so that you can enjoy that kind of experience, even if you don't have that in your daily lives. And even if you know that it's not real, it's okay to indulge in that fantasy.
I think that it can be a fun entertainment thing that you can enjoy as long as all parties understand what we're doing. Can it be a fun fantasy as long as everybody is understanding of the fantasy? Sure, it requires extremely, extremely careful holding of boundaries, because it is very easy to make this unhealthy. And honestly, I'm going to be real. I don't think most people who attempt to do this kind of entertainment hold those boundaries appropriately. As VTubing, as anything, like, most people are dog shit at making boundaries and holding boundaries because they're people pleasers. And that's no shade to just VTubers. That's like everybody. Even I think industry agency VTubers do this poorly. And there are several that are known for doing parasocial shit in a way that is morally gross.
I gave this example earlier with a friend that I was talking about this exact situation to. I'm currently watching Bridgerton. If you don't know what that is, it is a period drama sort of thing. It's about England and debutantes and dating and fucking. And
sounds like fun.
It's kind of like a romantic sort of thing. It's kind of I mean, you know, it's one of them. It's kind of like a K-drama, but English. And I am indulging in that sort of thing. I am indulging in that fantasy. I'm enjoying the characters. I'm maybe relating to some characters, maybe not relating to some characters. It doesn't really matter. The point is, I know that it's all just a fantasy, and at the end of the day, I know that I can walk away from it. In a lot of cases, VTubing is the same sort of thing. VTubers are...
Except for the fact that Bridgerton cannot talk back to you. And that's why it's a dangerous line to ride. Bridgerton cannot respond to you. They're not going to recognize your username and say hello to you. They're not the same.
They're usually playing some sort of a character. They usually create themselves some lore. They maybe make a backstory. They maybe, you know, up their enthusiasm when they're talking to you. Maybe they're trying to, you know, play up sort of situations with you. Maybe they're trying to make it seem like they like you a lot more than they actually do. Maybe they're trying to...
I think that this is exactly why this shit gets toxic as fuck. If it's something where that creator doesn't specifically address specific audience members and talks about it as the audience in general, I think this can be done. But when you are specifically addressing people an individual in your chat that way, that is unhealthy just at base. Playing into that individual connection or creating individual connections as a streamer that is specifically playing on that kind of fantasy is dangerous. It encourages shit behavior. And you have to, like, the boundaries needed to do it correctly are very high. I see it done properly very, very rarely.
To act yandere with you. I have a friend that does yandere roleplay all the time. No, I'm sorry, it's not roleplay. She actually loves you. But the point is, right? There are a lot of VTubers who are trying to give you some sort of a situation.
We have to understand the difference between an ASMR yandere roleplay that is posted on YouTube and me saying, I'm going to use one of my mods as an example so as to not make anyone uncomfortable, but like, oh, Rainy, you can't ever leave me or I'll fucking kill you because we're in love. I love you so much, Rainy. Like, there's a very big difference between, like, giving that specific attention to that specific person and doing like an in general role play at no one in particular. And when you don't make boundaries well, it's very difficult to keep it respectful and to prevent boundary breaks. I missed it. That's great. I'm glad. Oh God, I hate doing that type of shit. I'm glad that y'all react hating it. It's so great.
That makes you feel like you are involved with them. This is actually exactly what I was talking about in my last video with commercialized friendships. These VTubers are trying to sell you the fantasy of being your friend, of being involved with you, of liking what you like, of caring about your life, etc., etc.
Yeah, I don't care about y'all's lives, and I don't think anybody should pretend that they do in that in-depth way. Do I want y'all to be happy in a general, like, yes, I want people to be happy and live good lives? Absolutely. But do I want to know your deep wounds and everything going on with you? No, because I'm not capable of holding on to that information for that many people, and not for you specifically. I want y'all to like me. I want to be a likable figure. I want to be a positive thing that you do in your day if you watch me. Like, we can't be friends. But the thing is like, y'all don't have to really care about anything that happens with me either, right? It goes both ways. Like, I don't want to know everything that's going on in your life, and all y'all know about my day today is that my desk broke. Y'all know that I broke my desk and I showed you a picture of it, but like, y'all don't know what I was doing in depth yesterday or any of my emotional problems. And that makes this a lighthearted, fun relationship where we get to do cool shit together 99% of the time. And then occasionally something happens and we got to talk about it, right? But what we're not doing is getting in-depth and vulnerable and emotional and talking about all of our deepest insecurities and the worst things that ever happened to us. And that's fine. The lack of emotional intimacy is good. It's a good thing. It's a healthy thing.
Some VTubers are better at it than others. Some VTubers don't do it at all because they just don't like that sort of thing and they don't want that kind of connection. That's also okay. But some VTubers do it, and they do indulge in those fantasies themselves, and they enjoy that kind of thing. They like playing the girlfriend experience character. They like being called everyone's friend. They like being in those sort of situations. The only thing that I meant from my last video was that you as a person have to have some standards, and you have to be able to disconnect yourself from that, because some people can't. Some people look at these people and they genuinely think they love them. And that's when it gets dangerous. I think that's where parasocialism, there's like a line drawn for me.
All right, this is a big difference of opinion that I probably have with VTubers specifically, but some content creators in general. The thing about it is there will always be people that are weird. I have people that send me weird parasocial ass DMs, and you know what I do about it is I ignore it. But it goes both ways. There will always be people that are weird. But as the content creator, you are the one in charge. You are the one who has the power to enable or make people not feel like they should be doing those things. If I'm sitting here and I start telling you about my terrible relationship with my mom and going into like all of these really horrible things that happened to me, crying on stream, and you feel the need, obviously, as a human who's empathetic, to make me feel better, that's me taking inappropriate advantage of a parasocial relationship, because y'all have no place knowing that about me. Just like you have no place telling me. That's why you don't trauma dump in a streamer stream. I don't trauma dump on you, and you don't trauma dump on me. And that's okay. But if I choose to break boundaries and I don't keep the relationship boundaries, like don't make them clear with you. And then you get confused because people are fallible and stupid, because we all are, including me, because I would also be being stupid in that situation. That's not the viewer's entire fault. The fault also lies with that content creator. And I think it's really weird to just say that it's the viewer's fault if they get parasocial. The content creator has power there. The content creator is always in power. The figure is always in power in a parasocial relationship. So it is you who has to decide. It is you who has to make boundaries. It is you who has to hold those boundaries appropriately and effectively. Are some viewers always gonna be weird? Yeah, absolutely, and 100%. There are always gonna be some viewers that are fucking weird. However, it is up to the content creator to consistently hold appropriate boundaries. And a lot of that shit can be negated by doing so. I have a very low amount of weird parasocial behavior in my community. I'm one of the only VTubers I know that hasn't gotten like crazy dick pics and shit.
Because in those situations, it's dangerous not only for the fans, but also for the VTubers. Because, you know, there are stalkers, there's crazy people who go around trying to... I don't know. You've all probably seen Oshinoko, right? VTubers are getting in relationships on the back end. VTubers have personal lives. There's a lot of things that you need to be able to separate yourself from and realize that it's not real. It is a fantasy if they are doing those sort of things.
And they need to hold boundaries to make that clear, period.
And you need to be able to look at yourself and think, I want to have genuine friendships and I want to be able to make those connections. And I know that these aren't real. But at the same time, I don't think it's worth it to judge people if they enjoy those sort of situations.
I don't think it is wrong to enjoy that kind of experience from a VTuber or any other entertainer. I don't think it's inherently wrong. I think it's about how it's done and how they approach that relationship and how the content creator creates the relationship.
I don't think it's worth it to worry about what other people like to present to people. If people like to do girlfriend experience content, that's fine. If they want to pretend to be like their viewers' best friends ever, that's fine. I think it's perfectly okay to indulge in these sort of fantasies and to have these sort of fantasies. And that's probably part of the reason why ASMR content has been popping off so much, and how there's ASMR roleplay scenarios where people will go and they'll listen to somebody like pretend to be their boyfriend when they wake up in the morning and they're right next to them, and oh, you get the sexy morning voice and stuff like that.
I'm so sorry. I have a very hard time expressing this particular opinion because I fear VTubers, honestly, and the way that they are. The way that some ASMR shit is done, I think is inappropriate for the platform. I think ASMR is great, to be clear. I actually really like ASMR. I watch a lot of ASMR. My mods make fun of me for it a lot. I like ASMR. I think that there are lines that need to be held, but there are ways to do it that are weird, and there are ways to do it that are not weird, and they are not they're not similar. Yeah, I don't like lewd ASMR. I think it's better now. I don't really look anymore, but when I was like, ooh, some of the VTuber stuff is really weird.
People like to have fantasy, and fantasy is not a bad thing.
I agree.
But you just have to be able to separate that from your real life and your real existence. You have to know that it's not an actual connection.
And the VTuber has to separate that themselves. Like, and this is like with small VTubers, this is especially bad because a lot of small VTubers, like, I'm just going to say as a VTuber, I don't think you should really DM fans. I think that there can be exceptions to this, but in general, DMing your community as a VTuber is always going to end up fucking weird. I don't know of many situations where it doesn't, because people people are not very good at separating a VTuber and understanding that they're real people. And so people see the VTuber model and just get super fucking weird. To me, I'm a public figure. Everything that I say is public that you guys know about. Everything that you need to say to me could also be public. You don't need to say anything privately to me. We don't have that kind of relationship. But like 99% of the time, I see VTubers on Twitter talking about an inappropriate parasocial reaction. There is a context in which that VTuber has not kept proper boundaries and has allowed boundaries to be crossed repeatedly, usually. And then they go, but they're being weird. This never would have happened if you didn't DM random viewers in the first place. You shouldn't do that. I think that there are exceptions to every rule, But vast majority of time, if you're a VTuber specifically, I don't think it's worth it to talk privately with viewers because a lot of people are just fucking weird.
That is the main problem, I think, that people have with parasocialism. A lot of the time, there are people who don't know how to disconnect. There's a lot of people who don't know the healthy way to deal with these kind of feelings.
That's fair.
They just kind of toss everything at a person, and then they expect something back in return, and they get angry when they're not getting it, and they feel entitled to a person, and they feel like, you should be the one that marries me. You're trying to sell me this fantasy. You love me and only me. And that's when it gets really dangerous. But at the same time, if you are trying to thrust this expectation onto a VTuber that they should be selling you a fantasy, that's not necessarily true either. Sometimes a VTuber doesn't really want to do that. Sometimes there's reasons that they became a VTuber that were not related to trying to create a fantasy, that were not related to try and play a character. I have a friend who was a facecam streamer who became a VTuber because it's just a lot easier. It's a lot nicer to have like a model to represent yourself instead of having to put your face all over the internet. There's a lot of women who do it because they like the anonymity that it gives them.
I'm a VTuber because I'm wanted in every state. I have active many very serious crimes that I have warrants out for my arrest. And if I were to show my face, it would result in almost an instant FBI open up situation because I have done very terrible crimes, including up to and including treason. And so if I were to show my face, it would be a very difficult situation, and therefore I choose not to do so. That's why I use a VTuber model. It's not any fantasy, none of that shit. I'm wanted by the government. I don't want to go to jail. It sucks there.
I personally like being a VTuber, not only because I drew and created my own avatar, and I like being able to showcase my art in that way, but also because I like the idea that if I want
I love chatters being like, she's joking, chat, she's joking, Like y'all are scared as fuck that people think I'm being serious, which is so funny to me. Thank you. That is a joke, yeah. But it's also not. I'm actually a criminal. It's true.
To move on from content creation, no one will know who I was. And there won't be a situation where someone finds me out on the street or something like that, and they're like, oh my god, you're Cozy Chew, because they have no idea what I look like. They have no
Yeah, the idea of that makes me wish I was not alive. The idea of like going to the store and having somebody be like, oh my god, you're HexJuice, you say Baba Booey's nut, makes me want to peel off my own skin. The thought of any sort of recognition or anything like that is just horrendous to me. I hate that. And again, I am wanted by the government. I'm a treasonous criminal and I do horrible things. Yeah.
No idea who I am. They have no idea where I am. I am Cozy. I am an alpaca on the internet. And I think it's good to have that kind of separation for myself, but I'm not playing a character, really. I'm playing up the good parts about myself, but I'm not selling you a fantasy of being like a cutesy, idly kind of girl. I am just myself. And in some cases, that's all that a VTuber wants to be.
Do you think if I started doing a baby voice that people would send me lots of money? Because I'm gonna be real. I did that one time before. Like, it was as a joke. It was like a sub goal. And they paid me double the sub goal to make me stop doing it. Which, honestly, farmin', slay. I would say I play a little bit of a character, but when I say that, I'm not saying that it's outside of the person that I am. It's a premium subscription of me. Hex Plus, yeah. It's Hex Premium. It's Hex Turbo, and it's not separate from who I am as a person, but I'm also not going to be like screaming like a banshee and talking about fucking your mother. Actually, I do talk about fucking people's mothers a lot. So it's me plus, it's the 12 out of 10 version of me. It is still inherently who I am and not separate. Mostly because I don't think I'm somebody that could put on a front like that forever. Even when I try to be less myself and more nice and more chill about shit, it would seep through all the fucking time. Because there's a period of time where I was trying to be like less abrasive, like easier watching, a little bit more chill, less of an asshole, less opinionated, and it would like it seep out of me. Like I was always like I couldn't keep it in because I'm just so much, you know. And so like the reality is like I'm actually more myself now than I ever have been. I'm more true to myself. It's me plus not me, you know?
Conclusion, basically, just be safe. If you really enjoy having a fantasy and indulging in characters in VTubing, that is perfectly okay. And I think that it's fine if you're seeking out VTubers that follow that sort of trend and you don't really like or want to watch VTubers that are just themselves and are being too real. I think it's okay to decide that that's the kind of content that you want to experience and you don't want to experience real people with virtual avatars. Perfectly okay. Perfectly fine. I think it's also...
Yeah, if you want a fantasy here, the only fantasy you're getting is put my wiener in your mom's mouth right now. You hear that? That's her head on my desk because she's sucking my dick.
Also okay if you do want to avoid things like girlfriend experience stuff, if you feel uncomfortable with this character behind the screen trying to pretend that they're so close to you, if you want that kind of separation, I think that's fine too. There's different styles of content for different people, and I think it's really important that we just are safe with it. As long as you know that you are just trying to indulge in fantasy, as long as you know that these are not like actual friends.
And as long as the VTuber also keeps proper boundaries and does not break them and then expect others to not be confused. It goes both ways.
It's fine. That's about it. I just want to do a quick rant about parasocialism and stuff. I really do suggest watching Caroline's video though, because I feel like that goes over the face cam aspect a little bit more. I feel like VTubers tend to play characters a lot more because we can play characters a lot more. We can be an anime girl on the internet.
Because it's vestiges of VTuber idol culture, and that is what a lot of people want to do. However, idol culture works primarily because they are literally idols that work with corporations. They are not random people with 4 average viewers. And there's a very big difference in how that is managed and the support that they have. They play idol characters because they are idols, because they work with Hololive or Niji Sanji or whatever. And even then, there have been numerous examples of them misusing those relationships and being inappropriate, period. However, that works better in terms of agencies and corporations because they are literally idols who are trained and managed, and because they have more support than a random independent VTuber who has 4 to 30 viewers trying to do the same thing, and then it getting weird and parasocial because they don't know what the boundaries are and there's not enough people to create that like boundary naturally. Because when you have enough viewers, that boundary is sort of naturally created because obviously you can't give everybody like individual attention. But when you got 30 viewers or even 100 viewers, you have to create those boundaries yourself or people will always be weird.
And it actually is a little bit easier to sell that character, but real people, less so. So definitely check out that video, and thanks for stopping by mine. See ya!
There are VTubers who will always misunderstand parasocial boundaries, take it too far, be weird and creepy and inappropriate, and cross lines that shouldn't be crossed. Always. Most of the time I see those issues occur, it is not entirely or even mostly on the viewer's behalf. Most of the time, the fault lies with the content creator there. Trying to off-put responsibility for holding boundaries onto the viewers entirely is shirking responsibility for something that is a content creator's responsibility, period. That is the nature of a parasocial relationship. The creator, not the individual, is the one who has the higher amount of power. When they don't use it properly, this is what happens, regardless of how weird some people will always be. Because I've had people be really weird and be really stalky, and it happens regardless. However, if you hold boundaries, it'll happen a whole lot less and a whole lot less severely. And maybe that's like a scathing review, and I don't usually talk about VTuber stuff because I do have a lot of criticism for the way VTubers run their shit. And I also think that VTubers unnecessarily create more of a, like, make themselves more niche and less accessible because of these behaviors. That's why I say, like, I am a VTuber technically, like literally, but I don't participate in the culture basically at all, except for the debut stuff. And like, I do have lore and stuff, but that's mostly because it's fun. Y'all know what the boundaries are, and I know that because y'all don't break them. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. Thank you for watching. If you watched all the way through this, let me know what you think down below. I think that there's ways to do things that are helpful and ways to do things that are unhelpful, as with all things. It's not black or white. It's not always 100% the streamer's fault, and it's not always 100% the viewer's fault. There's usually somewhere in between. But y'all have a good day. Come join us on Twitch if you ever have time. Love yourself. Drink some water. Boo bye.